Welcome to The Real Story with Jeanne Ives. Today on the phone with me is State Representative Brad Halbrook. And he just finished a marathon session last week in Springfield that ended on Saturday morning at 6 a.m. with the Democrats passing their spending plan. I wouldn't call it a budget, a spending plan. And so Brad joins me today on the phone. Hopefully he's got some rest over the weekend to talk about that budget, because it's a doozy. I mean, Brad, let's face it, it's the largest budget that we've ever had in the history of the state of Illinois. The way I calculate it, in the last decade, it is probably well over a 50% increase from, let's say, the 2013, FY 2013 budget. And there's a lot of garbage in here. What's your take on it all?
Yeah, well, it was definitely a record-setting week and weekend. We went in about 11 o'clock on Friday and came out at 6 a.m. Saturday morning, 20 hours, basically a nonstop session filled with caucus meetings and committee meetings, and, a record span. It was an unbelievable session this last week.
So typical for the Democrats, they played hurry up and wait with everybody in terms of this budget. So it's wait. We're not going to do the budget till the last week. We're not going to tell anybody what we're doing until maybe 10 days beforehand. Still, we're going to go up to the wire and throw the budget together, and then the man of the hours have a vote on it. I mean, that's essentially what happened.
Right. I mean, we've known now for a few months that April 8th was going to be the date. We had our normal appropriations hearings, but about 3 weeks ago, the process for us kind of broke down. Typically, you go from hearings into working groups, and then bills get formed, and that's the process, right? However, we were never invited in. The Republicans were never invited into the working groups after the hearings ended. And so, the thing just became in a state of flux. They said, well, it's going to be this bill, it's going to be in that bill, and then, they waive the posting requirements to go to committee, and then stuff just pops out in an hour's notice. Just typical true to form with the Democrats.
Right. So you got 3,500 pages of bill information. I know that you and I had a discussion, and just hours to go before the votes, even the staff didn't. The Republican staff didn't know everything that was in the bill. I mean, voting in the blind has not worked well for Illinois, and we continue to allow these people to get away with it. Or rather, I'd say the voters continue, especially up here in suburbs in Chicago, they continue to allow these Democrats to get away with it. And were there any Republican votes on this budget this year?
Yeah, I don't think there was. That's the troubling part is, there was a budget that popped out. I think it was Wednesday evening late. Our staff went into the wee hours of the morning, Thursday morning, to try to analyze it. Then there was chatter of another one. And then I think it was Thursday afternoon, mid-afternoon, the governor and the two Democrat leaders come out and says, hey, we have reached an agreement. We now have what it's going to be. But yet it takes till 4:30 Saturday morning before that bill hits the House. So
right.
I don't understand why, if there was all this agreement, why that bill didn't come out sooner than 4:30 or whatever time it was on Saturday morning. It defies all logic in this process.
Well, it is remarkable that when you talk about this agreement, when you talk about this decision among the players to write the budget the way that they did it, we're really only talking about a handful of Democrats, even amongst Democrats, that are making the heavy decisions about what is in the budget, what's not in the budget. So a lot of the rank and file Democrats are voting as blind as the Republicans when it comes to voting for this budget.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. And right, there's just a handful of people in the room making the decision about what's going to be what. And I think they tell their members. And I think that's maybe the problem why there's 2, 3, 4-hour Democrat caucuses. I think maybe they are getting some details leaked out. I don't know. I'm not in that room. I'm not privy to those details. Mm-hmm. But it's every day for the last couple of weeks. It's been these marathon caucus sessions that the Democrats have. And I know they're grappling with a lot of issues, the Safety Act and the criminal stuff. The list goes on and on. So I don't know that they're spending all this time talking about budget details. But, yeah, there's just a handful of people making these decisions because it's just bizarre the way it works out.
Okay, so give us some top lines about the budget and sort of the numbers and your understanding of the election year gimmicks that they've included.
Right. So we're still kind of sorting out some of the details to find out exactly what's in there. But I think what's really kind of important is the amount of spending, I think, is increased at the rate of about 10% all the while. Revenue is going to decline by about that same amount. If it had not been for the sales tax on the inflated dollars over the last several months, there's been about $4.5 billion additional tax money that's come into the state just because of the increased tax revenues from the inflated sales of gasoline and the other things. And so, I think our floor leader talked about Illinois is on this sugar high because they think they've got all this brand new revenue that evidently I believe they think is going to stick around, and it may to some extent. However, the costs have really not caught up yet, and that will be in the coming months, right? The sales tax revenue or the income tax revenue is coming in early, but then as contracts get renewed, as we have to face the increased pressure from inflation on the things that the state of Illinois has to buy, then that's going to offset. So I think that kind of lends itself maybe to a bigger picture with the ARPA dollars, all the coronavirus dollars that have come in. They say, well, we've magically balanced the budget. We're paying bills quicker than we ever have in the history, on and on and on.
Well, that's all good, but it's all sort of temporary.
Some of those dollars, they don't. They put it on new programs.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, so I'm looking at the list of new programs. It's pretty extensive. The Black Business Alliance of Peoria. Okay. Well, I don't know how important that is. What is the Innovation Vouchers Program? $3 million in general revenues to the Innovation Vouchers Program. Do you know what that is?
Yeah. No.
It's okay to say no because I could ask probably 90% of the people down there and they don't know what that is. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, we're going to have a feasibility study for a public-private partnership for civic and transit infrastructure. They literally say 60 House Democrat pork projects valued at $120 million under DCEO got funded. Well, that's interesting. It's just amazing to me. And I'm looking at some of these DCEO grant programs. And by the way, why is the Secretary of State budget, why is that where everything is housed? He's always got a bunch of garbage in there. $1 million to the Holocaust Museum. $1 million to the Holocaust Museum. Out of all the museums that we have in the entire state, they get $1 million? Why does Oak Park Library need $25,000 from us, from state taxpayers? Can't Oak Park handle that? There's a bunch of liberal, wealthy leftists over there. I don't get that. LaGrange Library, too. Sorry, LaGrange Library, $25,000. This is just full of it. You could go on and on here. A grant for $500,000 to Christianaire Incorporated. Not sure what that is. Does not sounds interesting. Saint Sabina Church, $1.5 million. Okay.
Right. Yeah, and there's new program after new program in every agency. There's expansion. Here I'm seeing a $20 million additional for welcoming centers, and this was a supplemental in FY22. Again, because of the increased revenue, because of these inflationary things, this $4.5 billion additional dollars have come in. They're continuing to spend money on things that, it's like, wow, I think we have kind of other issues like unfunded pension liabilities. And granted, they put another $500 million in unfunded pension liabilities. And I think that's the discussion that we try to have is, okay, what would have happened if they wouldn't have had this additional just kind of a windfall of sales and income tax come in? How are we ever going to address the underlying problem dealing with the pensions, property tax, the list goes on and on.
Well, I think this one concerns me a lot. The Village of Bridgeview, Seat Geek Stadium upgrades and tourism, $2 million. That is not that is not going for new programming to attract it. That's going to pay off their massive amount of debt that they have on that sports stadium that was a total failure.
Mm-hmm.
That State Senator Landeck is the mayor of Bridgeview. That's we're basically bailing out Bridgeview's debt for their stadium. That's what that $2 million is doing. I guarantee you.
Right.
Money's fungible, folks.
Here's a new program: $25 million for high impact tutoring for the State Board of Higher Education. $10 million for Community Behavioral Health Workforce Education Center. Evidently, that's in southwestern Illinois. It's just loaded with brand new programs here.
It's unbelievable. At the same time, you're going to see Democrats, what are they going to be doing? They're going to be bragging about how they gave tax relief. So it started out just a couple days before you guys actually vote on the final budget, that the reports from the news from Center Square, at least, was that taxpayers are going to get $100 in tax relief and every dependent $50. Well, they switched that. It's basically every taxpayer is going to get $50 and every dependent of that taxpayer is going to get $100. This is obviously, something that's better for families, but it's also better typically for the poor as well. So they're going to go get those grants. Then you've got a couple $100 in property tax relief that'll go to homeowners, is my understanding. And then you've got this huge, we're helping you out with the high price of gas. We're actually not going to impose a tax, a new gas tax that's not even imposed yet. We're not going to do that. That's going to be our relief for people paying record amounts of money at the gas pump.
Right. So they're going to take what would, this inflationary built into the gas tax hike of 2019, every July 1st, the gas tax or the motor fuel tax, if you will, goes up the rate of inflation. And again, they've just paused that for 6 months. So as soon as we get through the election, January 1st, that rate goes back in. So you just get a 6-month break from it. Okay. But what's inside the weeds on that one, or the inside baseball into the weeds, however you want to say it, is they're going to take money from the Lust Fund to offset that loss in revenue for 6 months. And the Lust Fund is the leaky underground storage tank fund. So every time anybody buys a gallon of gas, there's a few dollars that go into that Lust Fund to repair or to clean up leaky underground storage tanks at gas stations. So we're going to rob from that fund that's going to help clean up the environment to put money into this road building fund. Okay, so it's people that have said, hey, you know what, I understand, I'll pony up and put my money into the underground storage tank fund. Well, now we're not going to clean up those tanks at the rate that we have been, just because they've done this other election year gimmick. It's just disingenuous, Jeanne.
Well, it's completely ridiculous. At the same time that they're giving these small little tax credits, which, by the way, a lot of these tax credits, just remind yourself where that money came from. It came from you, the taxpayer. So thank you. You're giving me my money back. But why'd you take it in the first place? Why don't you just get more efficient? But at the same time, they're also apparently are having an expansion of the earned income tax credit, which was a very successful tax credit program. It encourages people to actually earn income. Although I will say this about that. I think it's, I did taxes for 8 years. And when I start out earned income tax credit, you cannot be a full-time student and get the earned income tax credit. You couldn't do it. Well, that's changed. You can be a student and picked up, a small job, even working less than $10,000 a year. And you are eligible then for about a $1,500 earned income tax credit. And it's just crazy. You're in school full time. That's what you're doing, really. And we're going to, that's not what that tax credit was ever started for, is my point. That's not what that tax credit was about. But here in Illinois, we also have our own version of the earned income tax credit, which we've expanded a number of times. And now they're doing a permanent expansion, is my understanding. So all these other tax credits are temporary. Meanwhile, Iowa, they permanently cut their income tax rate, permanently cut it. And other states are doing the same. Not in Illinois. The only thing we're going to make permanent is an additional handout to, people that would receive earned income tax credit.
Yeah. Well, I think what's important is a year and a half or so in the fall of 2020, the governor was running around talking about this $3 billion tax increase to change the rate, to go from the flat tax to a graduated tax, and how it was, the sky was going to fall if this bill did not pass and become a constitutional amendment. It just had to be done. And here, a year and a half later, all of a sudden, now we're talking about tax relief. Okay, why was it the sky was going to fall in the fall of 2020 if the graduated tax amendment wasn't passed? But now, fast forward till the spring of 2022, and tax relief is the greatest thing. I hope our constituents and voters are paying attention to what's happening.
I do too. I hope they understand what this is. This is a budget full of gimmicks. It's so disingenuous for these people to be doing that. I mean, I've talked about some other stuff that they did. I mean, this is the hypocrisy you could hear. So, State Senator Laura Ellman, for example, she's my latest example of this. There's plenty of them to go around, by the way. But she put out a Facebook ad that just the other day, saying, "Oh, we're funding the police. We poured, I think it was a couple $100 million into police. We're funding the police. We're getting this straight." Well, I'm sorry, but one, you handcuffed completely the police just a year ago, Laura Ellman, and you voted for that. And now you're looking like you're pro-police. It's not true. And, oh, by the way, the bill that you passed over a year ago, Laura Ellman, was estimated, I believe, by the Sheriff's Association to cost over $700 million. And now you're handing back to them because you've gotten absolutely destroyed in the press. Even the liberal press is kind of after you about the crime situation. Everybody knows it, of what's going on with crime. And they are pointing fingers. They are blaming you and the majority party, rightly so, be it for the bill that you passed, the SAFE-T Act, which is a joke. It's nothing safe about it, honestly. It's a pro-criminal bill. And so now you've got to do something to look good or to try and win back the police. And what do? You hand them $200 million when the real cost for that bill that you passed a year ago is well over $700 million. I don't know how they do math down there. I'm not sure that they passed third grade math.
Well, there's lots of questions, and as I was going back and kind of trying to, kind of make a few bullet points about kind of the way the 20 hours went. The big bills did not hit until after midnight. So here we've been in session since about 11 o'clock on Friday morning. The tax credit bill hit about 1 a.m. Saturday morning. Now, there was a retail theft bill, and I don't have it written down when that hit, but I think that was sometime in the evening, okay? I think the retail theft bill hit late in the evening. I just don't remember exactly when. But the tax credit bill hit about 1 a.m. At 4:10 a.m., the Safety Act trailer bill that's highly controversial hit. The ghost gun bill hit at 4:30 a.m. The budget implementation bill, 4:45, and then the last bill to hit at 5:18 was the budget bill, and then we adjourned at 6 or shortly thereafter. So all this heavy hitting didn't happen until way into the night or literally the wee hours of the next morning, after we've been there 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18 hours, this stuff hits.
Well, what do they think? They think that they're the heroes? They're pretending like this is their version of a ranger school experiment? We got to just tire everybody out so that they just vote on it and they're numb? I mean, I actually find it a bunch of drama for nothing. And absolutely the wrong way. It actually shows that you don't know what you're doing when you pass bills in the dark of the night or the wee hours of the morning. It shows that you don't know what you're doing. It shows that you can't plan. It shows that you don't want to be transparent. It's everything that it doesn't look like. It doesn't look like we were working so hard to get a budget together. That is complete BS. I'm infuriated by it all. Tired of it.
And the other thing here is, as I counted up, and I think this is fairly accurate, 19 bills or resolutions that night that were not on the regular calendar. They call this supplemental calendar 1 or supplemental calendar 2. At least 19 bills or resolutions that was on the supplemental calendar. So I think it lends to your point about what's going on there. Do they know what they're doing or do they not? It's like, why do we have to have a supplemental calendar? And again, all these big, heavy-hitting bills was on the supplemental calendar.
Well, it's just remarkable. I mean, okay, but you know what? Hey, you guys are going to be fine, right? You guys got a pay increase. Fourth year in a row. Fourth year in a row, right? That's how I calculated it. And
Right.
By the way, I think it was, where's my notes on this? Okay, I'm going to go off of memory. Let's see, 2019, Pritzker shows up, gives them their first pay increase in a long time, and they get, I think it was $1,600. The next year, they get, I believe it was $1,400. Then they got $1,200, and then this year, I think you guys got $2,500. So in 4 years, you got a 10% pay increase, and your workload's been lessened from COVID. First of all, you don't have to show up to vote. Deb Conroy didn't show up to vote. Tara Costa Howard didn't show up to vote. They voted from the comfort of their house or their office, wherever they were. They weren't there actually engaged in debate. They weren't. They were sitting on their ass at home, voting for the largest budget in the history of the state of Illinois, not engaged in debate, not at the caucus, not doing their job. You guys, obviously, and I'm not talking about you, but honestly, these people have made their jobs so cushy. They can vote remote. All the committees hearings are on Zoom. You don't have to be accosted by real people. You don't have to, take questions from the media right outside committee hearing. Nothing. You don't have to look people in the eye when you're voting on their legislation. You don't have to read their body language. You can ignore it all and vote however your party tells you to vote. And that's what they're doing.
Well, I hope two things change dramatically before we come back, and that would be this remote voting and the remote committee work. I've talked to more than one person that's tried to file, to do oral testimony in committee. They limit your time, or they don't even. They said, "Well, look, we're short on time. We're only going to allow two speakers, one proponent, one opponent." We don't get. This is limiting free speech. It's limiting accountability. All this stuff needs to be changed. This is not the way it was designed. Yeah, it's great that we have those capabilities and the technology to do that stuff, but enough is enough, The face mask finally came off in our chamber, a month ago. And you know what? When we left there Saturday morning, there was about the same amount of us there as there was a month ago when we had the face mask on. So it isn't like that, when the face masks come off that, COVID ran rampant through the chamber and made half of them sick or any other number. It's just insane the way this stuff gets done or doesn't get done.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being down there. Somebody, I was talking to a reporter today about a different race and stuff, and I had made the comment. You got a lot of these people running for Congress, and they're first timers, and they're like, yeah, I belong in Congress. They've never ran for anything else, by the way, ever before. And I actually encourage a lot of those people, why don't you start at a lower level? We need good people to be in positions of responsibility so that they learn, especially in Illinois. It's a complicated system, I think, between local, state, and federal government. I think you learn something by serving on the local level. I know you have. So I encourage them to do that. And the response from the person I was talking to was, well, who really wants to go down there and sit as a state legislator in the super minority with all that's going on? And I said, yeah, well, we can't have that attitude. First of all, we have to have the attitude that we're going to elect better people that really do want to serve their constituents better, with better programs, better systems, better tax relief, all of that. But it's a worthy job. It's worth doing. You have to do that. And even if you're in the minority, just the issues that you can bring to light for people will make a difference, I think, down the road. And I know for a fact that just by speaking up, you do have the ability to kill bad legislation. So I applaud you for going down there. It's not easy.
Yeah, I think that's what's important is we've got to have good people that will create the proper line of questioning in committee about this stuff and the proper line of questioning on debate on the floor. I think that's vital to getting to the bottom of it and exposing all the junk, if you will, that's in this legislation. At least get these folks on record for what they're trying to get accomplished, and it takes the right line of questioning to get to the bottom, and that's where we've got to have good people to expose them.
Well, thank you for being one of those good people. This is State Representative Brad Halbrook on the line with us. You're with Jeanne Ives on The Real Story. And thank you so much, Brad, for taking some time with us this morning.
Well, you're quite welcome, and appreciate the opportunity to kind of have this conversation.
Terrific. Take care.